Good morning, everyone. You are listening to Table for Two with Naomi Nachman on the Nachum Segal Network. Our show is sponsored by Natural and Kosher Cheeses, when quality and flavor met. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Naomi Nachman, and I'm about all the food all the time. I love food. I love shopping for it, cooking it, eating at restaurants, anything food related. I'm a kosher personal chef. My business is called the Aussie Gourmet. I give cooking classes. I cater for people, for Shabbat, for Yom Tov, and for Pesach. I am in the throes of Pesach already, and it's only just after Purim. Anytime you don't feel like cooking, you can give me a call. And I hope you'll tune in every week to hear about my exciting cooking adventures, kosher food traveling, and sharing of great ideas and recipes, and my amazing guests. But I want to hear about your experiences too, so email me, naomi@nachumsegal.com. You can join my fan page, the Aussie Gourmet, on Facebook. I'm also on Instagram, Twitter, and you can join my newsletter through my website, theaussiegourmet.com. So if you eat it, share it. Love to hear from you all. What a crazy week we all had this past week. Purim was last week, so our show last week was on Shushan Purim, was an encore show. So it was pretty exciting week. We were actually in Chicago and did a bunch of restaurants there. Love Shallots and, of course, Milt's and Emma's, which was noisy and busy, and in a good way, noisy and busy. It had an amazing atmosphere. So I had been there a few weeks before, so I was back there again. It was just a fabulous place to go to eat your way through Chicago. But, you know, Purim was amazing. I ate way too many hamantashen. Melinda Strauss of kitchen-tested.com. You've been on the show many times. I just want to give everybody acknowledgement of your amazing hamantashen recipe of the bagel, lox, and cream cheese inspired hamantashen. That was outstanding, unbelievable. A lot of my blogger friends wrote some beautiful recipes, and you can go to if you have the Jewish home from the 5 towns, you'll see all the great roundup I did, but yours was outstanding, so make sure you follow Melinda Strauss from Kitchen Just Tested, because hers were over the top. So we have an exciting show. You know, we've got Purim is now behind us, and Pesach's in front of us, and I pulled myself away from my Pesach kitchen. I can't even tell you how much food I've already made. I've already filled like 3 freezers of food for people that I cook for Pesach, and I'm really enjoying myself. But I love being here, and I love coming to the studio, and I love talking to people. And I have Beth Warren here, good friend of the network and of mine, and I have Yossie Horwitz also going to join us, aka Yossie's Corkboard, and we're going to talk food and wine and maybe not gaining 1 million pounds over Pesach. How am I going to do that? Welcome, Beth Warren. How are you?
Thanks so much for having me again.
Oh, my pleasure. I think this is the 3rd time already.
Yeah, it is.
You're like my go-to health guru.
Yeah, well, you know, people start to get anxious around these times, so it's good to kind of bring me in to try to calm everyone down.
I know, please calm me down. I just now lost, it's almost a year. I just lost the weight from last Pesach. I'm so fortunate to go to the Doral in Miami for Ram Caterers, and I give cooking classes.
Right, yeah.
And I try to stay healthy, but it's so hard. Portion controls and food everywhere, and, you know, just getting off your sugary high from Purim.
Yeah, and it's also a long holiday, so people struggle with that as well. It's not just the one day that we have for Purim. It's 8 days, you know, so that's very difficult for people because you can't just indulge one day. It's going to carry over. And there's so many different parts to the holiday, you know, the Chag part, and then the Chol HaMoed this time is really long weekdays.
Right.
And
it's Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. Thursday night is again.
Yeah, and that time, especially if people are going to be working or they're going to be doing trips with their families, then what's going to happen is they might not eat all day, because then there's not what around them. And then they're going to come home at night and just eat all the chips and the whatever Passover stuff they could get. So there's 2 things you have to worry about. The Chagim, where you're just kind of sitting and eating and sitting and eating. And then the Chol HaMoed, when you're so busy running around and then you're not eating. So there's really 2 struggles involved.
So how do we find a balance?
The thing is with Pesach is you can't get caught up in the fact that things are all restricted. Oh, I can't eat this. I can't eat this. What am I going to do now? I don't have my this. I don't have my that. Don't get overwhelmed by it. If you really focus on what the goal of Pesach is in terms of food, it will be okay. So we have to just start focusing on the less processed foods, which is what the goal of my whole book, Living a Real Life with Real Food, is. I talk about how we should kind of take that step back to how we used to be when we traveled in the desert and we do the man and we really made things from scratch. And that's what Pesach really, we should embrace that about it. So if we stop relying on all these boxed packaged goods that are really, really processed, high in sugar and all this other stuff in there.
Bad oils on Pesach.
Yeah,
Such
hydrogenated oils, which in about 5 years are going to be extinct anyway. So I don't know what we're going to do then.
Let's hope.
Yeah, they're taking them out of the food products. Thank God.
I don't think we should really call it a food product.
Yeah, whatever that is. It probably stays from one Passover to the next Passover without even refrigeration. So if we stop relying on that and just say, let me go back to cooking fresh. Let me bake fresh goods. Let me, do all those kinds of things, which I brought some things here. Then we already won't start out on a wrong foot. Also, we rely very heavily on carbohydrate in our just normal day-to-day American diet. And what this Pesach does for us, it gives us a challenge not to rely and go into a meal thinking carbohydrate first, because we don't have bread anymore and we don't have all these pastas and things that we could have. So you got to think, the way I see it, vegetables first, or fruits first. And you say, you know what, let me start as that as my base and then build my meal around that. And then it has a whole different focal point for you. Instead of saying, let me get matzah. There's so many other foods you could embrace now.
Okay, can walk me through a meal.
Okay, for example, like I try to not, matzah's there for you. We don't have to worry. Matzah is there. So if you'll have it at some point. So what I do is I think of fruit more as a base sometimes for my meals, like for lunch, for example, where fruit also has sugar and fiber. So it is going to fill you, and it has a water content. So you're going to feel fullness from it. You don't need to have a starch. So I would have, let's say, a cottage cheese and fruit in my lunch instead of doing, on a matzah.
Is this on Chol HaMoed?
Yeah, on a Chol HaMoed, for example. Yeah. That's a good idea to do that, using fruit as the base instead of the matzah as the base.
Instead of having cottage cheese on matzah, just have cottage cheese and
fruit. Yeah.
Cool.
And you can have a bigger portion because it's mealtime. So you could have like a full cup of a mixed fruit mix, 2 cups of it even for a meal, because 1 cup is a snack. Right. And then you have that with cottage cheese, and then that's a nice meal. Also, we forget about salads, and if you take a minute before you go out on your Chol HaMoed routine to kind of make your little container of salad with tuna, you could still have these foods, and then don't rely so heavily on the matzah. If you did want to have matzah, it's not a crime. It's just that you should get the whole wheat. There's so many varieties now these days.
Right,
there's even oat matzah.
Oat matzah. I just saw that.
And I love that for the gluten-free people who have to be gluten-free. I'm so happy for them that they have a matzah. Right. Even shmura comes in now. So
shmura oat matzah.
Yeah, it's expensive, but they have it.
Of course it is.
Which means that you won't have it so much, which is okay. Right. So that's important. And, Greek yogurts are around now that are Chalav Yisrael and kosher for Pesach. And you could get plain and have fruit with that as well. Nuts and all these foods are something you could incorporate as more protein, healthy
nuts
fat.
Is a good snack.
Yeah, exactly. Nut-based snacks. I would probably pick nuts and fruit as a snack, yogurt and fruit as snacks, things like that, where you're not so reliant on the snack bag or the chips bag. You don't even have to go there. The reality is that people who really hoard all these packaged like chocolates and macaroon things and whatever, it kind of just sits there. And really, a lot of people don't even eat them. So you have to just think outside the box with what foods you could prepare. I did make a muffin here. For you.
Here?
Yeah.
You bought me a muffin?
Here. Yeah. Well, they kind of came out to be like a little cookie, but
is this a Pesach tikka?
Yeah. This is for Pesach.
Yay!
Yeah. So these are made out of almond butter, almond meal, or almond flour.
It smells good.
Right? Vanilla and like a baking powder. And you could even use an almond milk. It comes in a box, kosher for Pesach, the boxed variety.
Okay.
And an egg. It satisfies the sweet tooth, right?
Smells amazing. All right, let's give one to Yossie and one to ZK. We got to try this. So we are having a Pesach tikka cookie muffin.
Yes. So it really satisfies that like cakey thing. You could play with this recipe a lot. Mine came out a little bit like grainy a little. Mm-hmm. But even for people who don't use anything processed, like they won't even buy almond flour in a package, you can make it your own with taking almonds and just grinding them up. That is what almond meal is. Okay, so it really satisfies that sweet tooth with being high in protein.
This needs
and
a
not
nice cold glass of milk.
Yeah, it's really sweet. My kids actually physically made these ones for me. That's why they made them cute and small. And they kind of just pressed in 4 chocolate chips instead of pouring all these chocolate chips in a batter, when you have to do that. And then like they're all clumpy on the bottom and then one gets like tons and one gets none. So it's good to kind of like press them in as before you bake them. They take like about 10 minutes to bake. You could also make this into a pancake. So instead of doing the matzo meal pancakes.
That's interesting.
Yeah. And it comes out so nice, and
I
it
could
probably
see
comes
that.
out fluffier and even more fresh. It's good to have these as fresh as possible. And do them
Everything's
as
always good
pancakes.
fresh.
Yeah.
Everything's always
It really
good
is.
fresh.
And these have no grain. You know, I make these without being Pesach. I try in general not to focus on, all grains in my foods. If you just kind of think of all your options you have to make something into, a cookie or a muffin, then you stop needing so much grain, and Pesach becomes a lot easier, and you could still find these things to satisfy your sweet tooth. You could even use these for breakfast and have, like I said, with the pancake or having a few of those.
You know what? I take my regular recipes and I make them Pesachtic, meaning like they're already Pesachtic.
Right.
Because you have protein and you have natural ingredients in them, there's really not a lot. I don't need so much carbohydrates or sugars and stuff,
Exactly.
processed foods in my regular food. So I'm just doing proteins with fresh garlic or fresh salt, not fresh salt, but salt and, olive oil, and that's how they just happen to be Pesach.
Exactly. And these days you could get xylitol kosher for Pesach.
What is xylitol again?
Xylitol is a sugar alcohol. It's not sugar and it's not artificial. So meaning it's not a Splenda type of thing. So it's a natural sweetener that we could use in baking. It comes out really well in baking.
Really?
Yeah.
I'm not a big baker, so I don't.
Right. So it's definitely sweeter than sugar. So you have to play with the proportions of how much you need. But it is a good alternative to use. I use that, let's say, in my coffee during the holiday. And also there's coconut oils kosher for Pesach, which is a nice oil to use.
It's becoming more and more available in the kosher supermarkets.
Yeah.
I know Gourmet Glad has so much coconut oil you can buy. I bought this huge one at Costco the other day. We happen to go through a lot of
yeah, you
coconut
could
oil.
use it in a lot of things.
It does give it that coconut
It does.
undertone, but we started making challah with our.
Yeah, it depends on the recipe and kind of how much of that flavor comes through.
Yeah, it doesn't.
Really...
We used coconut oil, then we threw a whole ton of fresh garlic into the dough mixture.
Yeah.
So it was a garlic
Oh,
challah.
yummy.
But I was nervous that
of the
it would
sweetness.
be because of the coconut oil.
Yeah.
And it turned out fantastic. So I was like, okay, phew.
Yeah,
Because,
it
you're
doesn't
serving it
always
to
come.
guests. You're like, oh, I hope this is going to work out.
Yeah, exactly. But it's really nice oil to use. And there's another grain that we technically can use, only it's botanically a fruit, which is quinoa.
Oh.
Yeah. So I had like a quinoa extravaganza in my kitchen when I said I was going to bring it. A lot of people, it's becoming pretty widely accepted to eat.
Yeah, we had Rabbi Elephant sit in that seat right there
Yeah.
2 years ago, right after the OU put its stamp
I'm so
on it.
happy. I'm so happy.
And I said, after 2,000 years, Ashkenazis have something to eat on
Exactly,
Pesach.
because
We're like,
I'll tell you,
"Woohoo!"
I happen to be Syrian, and I could have rice on Pesach. So the thing is Ashkenaz now could have the quinoa, and I'm going to show you the things that we make. Now you can make with quinoa. So we stuff grape leaves. All Jews stuff everything, right? So
Yeah.
we stuff grape leaves, and usually there's rice mixture inside.
Correct.
But you could use quinoa mixture. And it looks really gooey here, but that's because it's just so good. It happens to be parve. It's not
Okay.
even meat. You could put meat in there. You could make a ground meat mixture with the quinoa. We call that hashu, and you make that inside the grape leaf. But
smells
this is
good.
parve.
So where do you get grape leaves from? I don't even know.
It's
I'm
really
such an Ashkenaz.
No, it's in a lot of supermarkets.
How does it come?
It comes in a jar. It's pickled. It's like a pickled.
And then you open it up, you take it out, you
leaf.
unroll it.
Yeah, and my brother-in-law's.
And then you re-roll it.
Yeah, my brother-in-law's mother is actually from Syria, and she'll literally find the grape leaf tree and take them off and brine them herself. So you don't have to do that. But, like a ShopRite or
Gourmet Glass.
these days, Gourmet Glass, supermarkets, I live in Brooklyn, in my area, all have them. They come in a jar. They're called grape leaves. You take them out. They're like literally a nice leaf. It looks like it came from the tree. And then you put the mixture in of the quinoa mixture and you roll it up. So I'm going to have these websites, these recipes on my website for you guys. Like when
And what is the name of your website?
It's www.bethwarrennutrition.com.
You just got to make sure you spell nutrition right.
Yes. And I also sign up for the newsletter because I also give a kosher for Pesach list, a healthy list.
Oh, fantastic. That's great. I just shared on Facebook someone kosher on a budget on her Facebook page. She shared things like the best foods you can eat on Pesach, and I shared that with people, and they were like really happy that.
Oh yeah, it's one of my most
foods.
popular lists because people really don't know what to buy, or you kind of you're so overwhelmed that you just you glaze over products and you don't realize like how you could use them or what you could do with them. So I also have just the simple quinoa salad. This is in my book. This is Living a Real Life with Real Food.
Beth has a great book. Let's just take a second to give your book and we'll come back to it, a little bit of a shout out. Yeah, if you're watching on our Nachum Segal YouTube channel on Nachum Segal Net, Living a Real Life with Real Food. How to get healthy, lose weight, and stay energized the kosher way. And that's what I like. It's directed for us kosher ladies.
Yeah, it's
and men.
Yeah,
children,
it's my
families.
diet strategy with the kosher market in mind, and there's also tons of recipes in there that could be used for kosher for Pesach. So then you could also put quinoa in nori wraps. So this is like sushi.
Oh, that's cute.
You know nori wraps? Yeah.
We're gonna eat soon.
Nori wraps are kosher for Pesach, which is awesome.
Yeah,
that's
they have
sushi.
to have a hechsher. They have to have a hechsher.
Yeah. Yeah. But once your supermarkets turn over, I've found them in even the most
Random,
supermarket, the most random places.
You can find OU products.
Yeah.
In the middle of like nowhere. And we'll talk a little bit.
Exactly. It definitely
places
needs the
he's
market.
found food, but
the quinoa you could put in there, and also
can I take one?
Yeah, it's a little bit. It's gonna might fall apart on you. You have to get the technique right.
Okay. Well, you've done a great job here.
Yeah, and you could also make a cashew, which I'll have on my website. You could make a cashew paste type of thing and wrap it with that. And guess what? All these recipes are part of like a cleanse, or I call it a kosher cleanse. They're all part of like my normal everyday diets. And now you could use these things as Passover. So again, you just think of Passover as something that you could embrace being cleaner, not more processed. You know,
Right.
you want to be cleaner.
Right.
And
That's what it is.
yeah.
I remember last year at the Doral, and I had such a great time, and the food was unbelievable. But the food there is, everything was gluten free. You had everything, and I was not looking forward to going back to eating all that heavy processed food.
Right.
Because I was eating a lot of fish and salads and.
Right.
Okay, there was a lot of cake too. Don't get me wrong. Hamburgers. Ari White was down there, like doing his barbecue. We definitely ate a little too much, but most of it was clean eating.
Yeah. It's because it's very fresh.
Yossie, can I give you one of these?
My final thing, which is the best thing you could do. So you could take quinoa actually and very simply make it into a crust like for pizza. Look at that. It's totally a crust.
Gorgeous.
Yeah.
Gorgeous. She bought it in an aluminum foil.
Yeah.
Oh, this is beautiful. We're going to eat that in a little bit after the show. We'll have some lunch together.
But I have to tell you that it's one of those things that seem very intimidating, but it's so easy. So easy.
You want to walk us through this?
Yes. All you do.
Because I make this. I actually started making Nachman for Pesach with this dough.
You could, for sure. All you do is, you don't even have to cook the quinoa first initially. You
basil.
soak it. The best way to do it is to soak the quinoa.
It's made with quinoa?
Yeah. It's a
I thought
quinoa
it was going
crust.
to be cauliflower.
No, it's a quinoa crust.
What? Okay.
I told you I had a quinoa extravaganza in my
Oh my
kitchen.
God, excellent. Okay,
You
go.
could take it. This is how many ways you could use it.
Quinoa pizza dough.
Yeah.
Oh gosh, table for two.
soak-
This is the first time we've heard
If
this.
you take 1 cup of quinoa, this is like a personal pie, right? Like a 9-inch, whatever. So you take a cup of quinoa, you soak it in 2 cups of water for like 4 to 8 hours. So I did it overnight.
You don't even
and
have
can
to cook it. You just soak it.
Not initially, no. There's different recipes for this, but this one worked the best for me.
Okay, everyone, grab your pen and paper. Stop your cooking. Grab pen and paper, or
a
I guess you'll
breakthrough.
pick it up on the archives later.
It's a breakthrough. 1 cup of quinoa, 2 cups of water in a container. I soak it overnight in the refrigerator.
done.
Take
Great.
it out, drain it, put it into a blender with a 1/4 cup of water. Blend it till it's like pasty. Okay? It looks like sand.
I'm so excited. Yeah.
Then
I'm at the edge of my seat.
You take it out. You could put it in a cast iron skillet, or like the glass pie.
Pyrex.
Yeah, Pyrex. I heated the Pyrex first, like just to get it a little hot. I sprayed it because it was just easier to work with.
You sprayed it and then you made it hot, or you sprayed it?
I made it hot and then I just quickly sprayed it.
Okay.
Not sure if I needed to do both steps, but I wouldn't want to
Okay.
I wasn't sure how
No, I love
would
it.
come out. Then you pour the paste mixture in the pie, in the skillet or the pie or whatever you do. You bake it 10 minutes. Then on 350.
Which is just ground up,
That's it.
soft.
Yeah.
Quinoa.
And then you flip it over and bake it again 10 minutes. You won't believe how much of a crust it already becomes. Then you could do whatever toppings you want. You could totally make it just a pizza. Or what I did is I kind of put pesto sauce in it, arugula leaves, cheese, and some tomatoes. That's how I just did it. And it comes out like a personal pizza. You can put it back in the oven, and then it melts.
I love this.
Yeah, it holds up a lot better than the cauliflower crust. So cauliflower,
I make the cauliflower crust,
which is
all
great,
the time.
and that's not even any grain. So that's a nice thing to do, the cauliflower crust. But when you're dealing with kids, sometimes they don't love that because it's not really sticking. You know, it'll come apart. Quinoa crust literally holds. It holds really, really well.
You see that I'm like speechless from this?
Yeah, it's not unbelievable. No more matzah pizza. Like, no more matzah pizza.
Oh, wait,
not even necessary.
No way.
You don't even have to. So this really didn't even take long.
And it's probably a lot more filling because
it is. And satisfying.
Let's talk a little bit about what quinoa actually is because it hasn't been around that long.
Right.
On the radar. My mother never gave us quinoa when we were growing up.
Yeah, so quinoa, it's like I said, it's botanically a fruit technically, but the properties of it are very similar to a grain. So that's why I like, if I'm working with a nutrition strategy for people who, let's say, aren't vegan or vegetarian, I completely count it like a carbohydrate. So it's not confusing. So it's still like a half a cup to me cooked. On a normal basis as a serving. There is a lot of protein in quinoa, though, more so than, let's say, a whole wheat pasta.
And that's why it's filling.
Yeah,
longer.
Filling and satisfying. Protein gives a satisfaction factor. So it's very satisfying to eat it. It's 9 grams of protein per cup. So it could technically be a whole meal. So if you see, I just kind of sprinkled cheese on there. Between the sprinkle of cheese and the quinoa base, it would be enough protein because I combined the two. So even though there's not a lot of like an animal protein on there, there's not tuna on there or, meat or, which you could, by the way, do all that too. There's a little bit of cheese. There's still a lot of protein in quinoa, so it balances.
Can you make quinoa bread?
I'm sure
I'm seeing something like this.
Yeah.
Right?
What fascinates me about this is the fact that gluten it's gluten-free quinoa, right?
Right.
Because it's not a grain, technically. Right. But gluten is what makes the adhesive in bread and doughs, yet quinoa holds up so well. So it's like fascinating to me. It stays together.
It's much more, I can lift it up.
Yeah, you could take it and you could like literally fold it and eat it.
Does it freeze well? That's always my big question with Pesach.
I'm not sure.
Because I plan, most of the cooking I do, I make in advance for my customers. So
it's
got to be tried and true.
I wouldn't see why it wouldn't freeze well.
Just make a whole bunch of discs, put them in between sheets of parchment paper, Ziploc bag it, take out one as you need.
I don't see why it wouldn't freeze well.
I'll probably go freeze it in the oven to toast it up a little bit.
Yeah. You could even make them even thinner and make like literally a wrap with them. Like they really held up so well.
Beautiful.
I found the way I did it was the best. People cook it first and then blend it and then it's kind of clumpy.
Okay.
I don't do that.
Soak it. How dry does it have to be before you put in the? Because cauliflower, when you do the cauliflower pizza,
you have to really wring it. Yeah,
that's the hardest part of the whole recipe.
Nothing. I'm telling you, just drain it like regular. Just drain it and then put it in, and then put a little more water in. The whole point is actually that it needs to be a little wet, so that's okay.
I cannot get over it.
Yeah,
absolutely fantastic.
I know. I had to, and I can't explain enough how easy it was. It's like a foolproof method. If you follow the method, 2 seconds.
Absolutely.
I find it easier
I'm like blown away by this. Okay, let's try some of those grape leaves, and then we're going to switch and schmooze with Yossie. All about wine and food, my favorite topic.
So the grape leaves.
Can I have a grape leaf?
Sure.
I mean a
fork.
A fork. And a plate.
Yeah. The grape leaf recipe is also in my book, so that I already always was making.
Right, but this is like converted for Pesach.
No, it was already kosher for Pesach because you could use quinoa.
Right, just you're switching rice out for quinoa.
Yeah, well, in my book it's as quinoa because we already know about all the rice.
I'm just going to use mine. Okay.
So it has like a sweet.
Oh my God.
You like it? So it's a sweet sour flavor. Because we're very into using like prunes and apricots as a sweetener.
Out of everything, that's my favorite.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's totally worth the little potchking you have to do.
Is it okay? Can we make you a plate, Yossie?
Too green for you. The sauce, why it's so green, by the way, is because there's mint mixed into it. Mint leaves.
Is this hard to make?
It's definitely not difficult. It just takes a minute. Because you got to sit there rolling all the grape leaves.
Well,
that's the longest part. No. Once you're making, I had to make all these recipes for quinoa, so I just made a big pot. No.
It's parv.
Parv, completely parv.
I must have not been paying attention.
Like I said, these are like really cleansing recipes. So these are all part of my kosher cleanse like diet
This
strategy.
is not normal.
Yeah, it's so good. So good.
Oh my God.
And you feel very fancy. It's really very to serve this to people, you feel like you're very fancy. It's like an appetizer.
Okay, let's talk about. Does this freeze well? So again, all the tough questions.
Absolutely freezes well. 100%.
Okay,
Because
you
I
paused
make
there.
every week. No, I paused because I was thinking the quinoa a second, but now I'm thinking about it. I literally make yebre. It's called yebre. We call it yebre. When you
Yebre.
stuff
Yebre,
grape leaves.
yebre. I heard
Stuffed
that.
grape leaves, right? But these
Oh.
are parv. So usually our yebre is meat, and it's with rice and meat.
That's the best yebra I've had.
Yeah. Because I like the lemoniness. Some people make it too sweet.
I love lemon.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yum. Outstanding.
lemon.
Beth Warren, you are a genius.
Great.
A culinary genius. We've got about a minute left before we've got to wrap up. Talk to me for a second. Give me a strategy. What's an elevator pitch for how we can just keep it going, keeping it real for the Pesach.
Yeah, well, first you have to just focus on whole foods, real foods as much as possible. Eat about every 3 hours. Don't get caught up in everything that you're not eating when you're supposed to be eating, because that will prevent you from overeating later. Don't eat so late at night. As much as we could avoid it with the Seder, try to just have protein and vegetables when it's super, super, super late that you're eating, and just drink tons of water. Try to stay active and really just embrace your family and get into conversation and make it a social thing, and more about just the festive part of the holiday than just all about like heavy eating.
You did fantastic. That was a perfect elevator pitch for staying healthy and keeping it light and real on Pesach. Thank you so
Good.
much for joining us. This was
problem.
magnificent. Oh my God, I cannot get over that yerba. Make sure you get Beth's book, Living a Real Life with Real Food. She's got this yerba recipe in the book, okay? I've got to pull mine out to bring it down to my Pesach
Good,
kitchen.
do
This
it.
was insane. Okay.
Awesome. Thanks for
Thank
having
you very
me.
much. My pleasure. I'm so glad we made this work because this was unbelievable. What a treat. What a treat. Beth Warren has been a guest on our show several times. My next guest is Yossie Horwitz, all the way from Manhattan, uptown, I should say. Welcome to the show, Yossie.
It is actually a very different place than down here.
Right?
So I was happy to come cross country,
The-
so to speak.
The historic Lower East Side.
Having a rebirth these days, I hear.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. I lived down here for 10 years, and it's always fun coming back. I just met an old neighbour this morning as I was parking the car. It's always great to be down on the Lower East Side. It's a very special community. This is where kosher food really started.
I don't know about that. but,
No, in America. It was
be.
the first Jewish community.
Certainly
was
wine was originated down here for many years.
Wine, Streitsmatter.
True.
There was actually a restaurant called Nachman's owned by my father-in-law and uncle.
What kind of food they use?
I'm not sure. It's been closed for about 60 years. So both my father-in-law and his brother have passed away. So it's
Time
been
for a revival.
time for a revival. Yeah, we need some restaurants back here on the Lower East Side, but I believe some are coming. And I just went to the the revamped kosher store. They're renovating it, so it looks really much hippier and trendier than it has looked in the last few years.
I
So
can imagine.
yeah, so welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So Yossie runs a website called Yossie's Corkboard. He's all about wine. Right?
This
And
is true.
Food,
This
and
is-
food, right? He
this is
loves
true.
food too. Don't get us wrong.
Well-
But don't call him a foodie. We are not foodies. We're just people who love food.
I really don't even know what that word means. I actually write a weekly column about wine that goes out as an email newsletter. The website is more of a place to house some of the newsletters. So if you go on the site, you can see some of the newsletters and read about different wines and different wineries and different things that relate to wine. But if you want to get it every week, as I assume anybody who listens to your show does,
Yes.
then you really need to sign up. It's free. It's an email once a week. Sometimes they go a little long. As a lawyer, being my day job, I tend to speak more than others sometimes. But the goal of the newsletter started. I've been writing, I guess, for about a decade. When I first moved to New York from Israel, and right around this time, right before Pesach, I started getting hundreds of emails from people who knew that I knew a little bit about wine, wanting to know what to buy. There are all these sales, what to do for Seder, what not to do for Seder, and things like that. And after I responded to about 20 or 30 of these emails, pretty much writing the same thing over and over,
Copy,
I was like,
paste,
this is
copy,
silly.
paste.
This is silly. And I figured I would start, some friendly spamming, and I just put 200 people on an email list and started sending.
How many you've got now?
So I think now I don't know exactly, but I think it's just south of about 5,000 people.
Cool. Yesterday was me, 5,001.
I did see that you signed up yesterday.
As I was preparing for the show.
I might not have agreed to come on the show had you not done that.
Yeah,
so
no,
it was
no.
a good move.
Of course.
On your part.
Do my research.
And
I already knew about you from Bension Fuchs, our mutual friend.
This is true. Bension's a good guy.
Got to get Yossie on the show, and then when I finally saw you at KFW, I'm like, oh, you're Yossie Corkboard.
Horwitz, but
yeah,
Corkboard works too, I guess.
Corkboard, was your little
and the goal of the website really is I'm a big fan of finding, not necessarily bargains, but good wines at all different price points. People constantly ask me, what's your favorite wine? What's your favorite type of wine? And when I tell them that I don't have one, everybody thinks it's just a line, but I really don't. Wine is part of my everyday life. And, the wine that I'm in the mood for at any given time is impacted by
what you're eating,
what I'm reading, what I'm eating, what I'm feeling, where I am, what I'm doing, who I'm with. And thank God these days there's probably 2,500 different kosher wines being made every year. And there's something for everyone at every price point and all the time. For today's show, I actually brought 2 wines that are for the rest of Pesach, so to speak. With the Seder coming along, people are going to be focusing on what are the best wines for the Seder and what are the most expensive wines or the most exciting wines. And if you read my newsletter right before Pesach, I usually come out with a recommended list.
Please make sure you sign up. Go to Yossie's Corkboard,
.com. And I recommend probably about 30 wines in 4 different price points. So under $15 or $16 usually, from 16 to 30, from 30 to 50. And then what I call Mashiach wines, which are the wines that I would be happy to serve the Mashiach where you ever grace my presence.
That's so cute. I love
and
that.
Those are like the extra special wines. A lot of times there are older vintages that have now aged to perfection and really are ready to drink. Some are harder to get than others. But there's really about 30 different recommendations that can really help people sort through all of the different options that they have these days. But for today, I wanted to focus on what I like to call everyday wines, which unfortunately not enough people drink wine every day. But
I like this guy.
Well, I mean, to be honest, I only drink 2 things. I only drink water and wine. I drink water for hydration and wine for pleasure, and don't really see a need to drink ever anything else. But I do know that.
But I drink coffee now in between.
That is true. I do have a cup of coffee.
Coffee
That's
in the
true.
morning, and it's wine or water.
Right. I usually don't drink wine at this hour in the morning, but I do have a wine fridge in my office, and I think that's an important part of anybody's day. So the wines that I brought today are actually pretty well priced. I think the white wine I brought is probably retails for under $20, and the red wine probably about $25. And at that price point, you can drink it very often. They're somewhat light. They're friendly. They're approachable. They will appeal to a wide range of wine drinkers, whether you're a sophisticated wine drinker who likes complexity and depth, and or someone who's just getting started and wants a tinge of sweetness on it. So we can try them if you want. I can talk about them if you want.
Yeah.
But
I bought my KFWE wine glasses.
That's good. We seem to have a lot of them, so I
Yeah.
hope other people will be drinking.
Yeah. I figured,
So I do have to get back to Midtown from
Beth
here.
is
So.
and I have to drive home, so and ZK and me, we'll have a little drink. This is Table for Two with Naomi Nachman on the Nachum Segal Network. Our show is also heard on a Rut Shiva English radio, and our show is sponsored by Natural and Kosher Cheeses, when quality and flavor matter. We are right here in the studio on the Lower East Side. We are post-Purim. I call it Erev Pesach because it's only a couple of weeks away. I don't have my countdown app on. I can't give you the exact date, but from about 365 days, I count down Pesach. And it's really, we are at the cusp. I can almost hear Kiddush at this point. And we are talking with Yossie Horwitz, a.k.a. Yossie's Corkboard. He is a wine expert. Can I call you an expert?
I'm a drinker.
He's a drinker. Water and wine and coffee in the morning, just like me. So we are sitting here. We are enjoying some food and wine talk.
So recently, there's been over the last few years, I'd say there's been a large explosion of interest in both food and wine. I assume you've noticed this as well. And
it's gone
more and more
crazy.
people have gotten into it, and there's more and more. And as a result, producers are producing more and more options, but at the same time, sometimes too much is not a good thing, and people can get confused and bewildered with a wide variation of options. And one of the problems is that these days there's very little information out there for people to select from. Most of the information available to the average consumer is either coming from the wine store, from the person who works in the wine store, or from the producers themselves, who are very good about putting out marketing materials and explanations about the wine. But really the best way to learn about wine is to drink. And if you may think that you know absolutely nothing about wine and you can discern nothing in a bottle of wine, but if you take two wines that are similar or dissimilar as you are interested, and you taste them side by side, you'll be astounded at how much difference you can tell between the two wines, even if 5 minutes before you put that wine in your mouth, you knew absolutely nothing about wine. But if you only drink one wine at a time, let's say Friday night dinner, Shabbat lunch, you're drinking just a bottle of wine, and you're like, wow, this was a really great wine. And then next week you have a different wine, and you're like, this is great wine too. It's very hard to tell the difference about why you liked one wine or why you didn't like another wine. It's really only by comparing the two together that you can do that. And there's a recent invention called the Coravin, which enables people to taste a little bit of wine from a bottle without actually taking out the cork. So you can...
Okay, let's back that up. What?
So this
Just
medical device...
we need to back that up.
This medical device inventor named Greg Lambrecht came up with an invention called the Coravin, which is basically
I'm writing that down. K?
Coravin.
Coravin. Okay.
And what it basically does is it has a very thin needle that you can insert through the cork, and as you pour out the wine, it replaces the space in the wine bottle that is vacated by the wine with argon gas, which is a neutral, innate, tasteless gas. And so you can pour yourself a glass of wine, pull the needle out of the cork. The cork will, because it's a natural substance, will close on itself, and it will be as if you never opened the wine. So you can have a really expensive bottle of wine.
ZK saw that on Shark Tank?
It's an amazing invention. I don't use it that often because I very rarely
just
have
want
leftover wine, or it's not that practical for me. But it has really opened up an opportunity for many people to use all these great wines that they have, that they've been saving, that they've spent a lot of money on for a special occasion. On that note, for years, people write me a lot of emails. I pretty much respond to every email. I think when I started, I probably got 20 emails a week, and I probably get 500 emails a week about different things.
And you do this because you love it.
I do it. I have no, as you'll see from my website, there are no ads. I have no commercial relationships. I don't even accept samples. I send them back. My doorman always complains. He's like, I don't have to send them back to the producer. I'll keep them. You don't have to take them. But I think that it's important to have to be as neutral as possible, and I think that the Torah teaches us this, and various other writings that it's very hard to maintain a lack of conflict of interest when you are getting something in return, whether it's a large something or a small something. So I've made a practice of actually never doing that. But the point is that so you get a lot of emails. I respond to them, and a lot of the emails are about, I have this great bottle. You must love wine. Why don't you come over and drink it with me, or we can enjoy it together? And the concept that there are a lot of people who love wine and collecting wine, but they never find the right moment to open that bottle of wine. And many, many years ago, the wine writers for the Wall Street Journal, Dottie Geithner and her husband, whose name escapes me at this moment, came up with this concept called Open That Bottle Night, which was everybody has these bottles,
right? And
nobody ever opens them because... And many people who are listening who have wine collections will understand the feeling of it's Friday afternoon, you're preparing for Shabbat, you're thinking about who your guests are going to be, you pull out that drawer in your wine fridge, or you look at the counter, wherever it is that you keep your wine, hopefully not on the counter, and you're like, well, okay, they don't really like wine, so this wine's too good for them, this wine won't be appreciated, I'm the only one who's going to drink it, do I really want to open a $200 bottle of wine, or even a $50 bottle of wine, or a wine that holds some sort of meaning for me, whether it's expensive or not, and then you push back the shelf, and then you end up depriving yourself of your own wine. So the concept was actually brilliant, and it became quite a thing in the non-kosher wine world called Open That Bottle Night, where people were getting together. And a few years ago, I decided that the time had come that the Jewish world would have an equivalent, except as a avid lover of wine, I felt that once a year was a little bit
not
schwach.
Enough.
It was a little schwach. I mean, once a year.
I
mean, waiting a whole year to drink your wine. So I came up with the concept that I call it the Rosh Chodesh Club, which is once a month. I invited, again, I reached out to a bunch of people I knew in the area, some not in the area, and I told them, once a month, you're all going to come to my house, 9 people, because my wife has, a lot of patients, but it is limited nonetheless. And everybody's going to bring a bottle, that special bottle that you want to share with like-minded individuals. We're going to have a few, vittles, some nosh, whatever. We're going to hang out, and it's just going to be for fun. It's not going to be an intellectual exercise. We're not going to have a blind tasting. It's just going to be bringing that bottle of wine that you want to share with your friends. We're going to get together. I'm going to find like-minded people. I'm going to make sure that all the bottles are more or less, fair. And it really took off. And where, last week was Rosh Chodesh Nisan, or we're just past Rosh Chodesh Nisan, and it was our anniversary. It was our 3rd year anniversary, number 37 of the Rosh Chodesh Club in my house. I can actually show you the menu from 2 times ago. The menu from the anniversary was thing, and because 2 times ago for Rosh Chodesh Adar Bet, we did a V'na'al Fochu, and we did the food theme at least was breakfast for dinner, and most of the time a friend of mine does the cooking. The last few months,
Who does?
For the last few months I've been doing the cooking on my own.
Duck and waffles. That's like my favorite combo. I love fried chicken and waffles.
Well, this was duck confit.
Duck confit, yeah.
Which was easier
Bacon
to make.
and hash. Remise. I cannot read French. Embrouche.
It's like an amuse boucher. It's to refresh your palate. So we had grapefruit brulee.
Steak and eggs. Oh my God, I'm gonna cry. Can I come to the next one?
I can put you on the invitation list.
Put me
I
on
can't
the-
guarantee a spot.
It'll come up. Yeah,
But-
I've actually had that dessert wine, the Horwitz.
Gewürztraminer?
Yeah, we had it right here in the
The
studio.
late harvest. It's very good.
Yes, it was delicious.
And it went well with the French toast, with the pineapple-infused coconut whipped cream and grilled pineapple, with candied maple duck bacon. It was actually very good. The food was never intended to be a big part of it, but it's kind of grown. The amazing thing about it is
I'm seeing the other menu.
The amazing thing about it is not the fact that we've done this for 3 years straight in my apartment, or that there are 20 people on the waiting list every month, but that there are between 15 and 20 franchises around the world that have grown of other people who thought it was a good idea. Now there's pretty much a regular monthly, we call it RCC for Rosh Chodesh Club in Lakewood, Miami, Los Angeles, Chicago, 2 in Israel.
And these are all friends of yours?
No.
Just people who, but they've connected with you?
They heard about the idea from me. They read about it on my newsletter or on
copied it.
Facebook or something like that, and they either asked me if they could come to mine, or it's a little bit far to travel, and it happens pretty much.
I'd get on a plane to come to this. That's amazing.
And it's a lot of fun. We have really great wines, and I being a lawyer, I have a lot of rules set around the Rosh Chodesh Club, and some of the other ones are a little more lenient, so they're probably easier to get into. We limit the wines to vintage 2009 or earlier. We started with 7. Every year we grow a little. And it has to be a bottle that's not really commercially available, because the point really wasn't go to the store, buy a really expensive bottle and come. It was more, this is for the people who have the stuff at home, who have been collecting it, and really just want a place to share with a bunch of friends.
I was in Paris in 1999.
Okay.
I worked the point system back then when it was not so popular to do it. I was already doing it. So I went with my husband. It was going to be my 30th birthday, and all I wanted was go to London and Paris. We actually have friends in both cities, so we stayed in both cities with our friends. We took the train, we flew to London, took a few days there, took the train across to Paris, spent a few days with our friends. I bought a bottle of wine in Paris. It's 2016. It's still in my wine cabinet. I haven't opened it yet.
I'm scared to ask you what it was, because there are very few wines that you could have bought in 1999 that would still be good today.
I know. I'm going to send you a
But
picture
you might
of
get
it.
lucky.
I'm going to send you a picture of it. Maybe it's worth like a fortune. I can pay off my daughter's wedding in one shot with it. Probably not.
Fortune's
right?
a little bit of a stretch. I think probably the most expensive kosher bottle these days, it doesn't really retail because it's not for sale, but it's probably just shy of $1,000.
Right.
If you have large format of older bottles and things like that, like magnums, which are 2 bottles, or double magnums.
I wasn't a
which are
big
4.
I mean, I always liked wine. I grew up with wine. My dad was a wine importer in Australia. So, I definitely knew, was having wine a lot earlier than I probably should have been drinking. But it looked like a cool bottle, and I bought it, and I said, one day I'm going to drink this wine. And
So there you go.
And it's now, 2016.
Time for a Rosh Chodesh club in your community.
I know, right?
Break
But
open
it's
the
either
bottle.
going to be balsamic vinegar or it's going to be awesome.
Well, probably won't be balsamic vinegar, but
That's
I mean,
Italy.
unfortunately for you, 1999 was not such a great vintage year in Bordeaux. The only reason I know that is because that was the year I got married, so I have a fair amount of bottles that I drink on an annual basis,
Oh, that's
which is
cute.
another fun thing to do. You buy wine the year your children are born, and then you save it
Till their 21st birthday.
Well, it's hard. Again,
I have friends who did that.
In the kosher wine world these days, 20 years is just is at this point pretty much the outer range of the limit of aging capability that we have, but that's very rapidly changing together with this increased interest. Producers are kind of digging deeper and reaching further to produce higher end and more quality wines. They'll have the ability to age for longer and cost more money as well. But like I said, today I thought we would focus on two wines that from two Israeli producers that I really like. One of them is the Tabor Winery, which has been around for quite some time, but in the last couple of years has had quite a revival and has been making very serious quality wines. But what they're actually, in my opinion, deserve the most recognition for is they make wines with very, very good QPR, as in quality to price ratio. So you're getting really good bang for your buck. They actually, in Israel, they had a few weeks ago, they have their annual best value competition, and the Tabor Winery took home a medal, gold, silver, or bronze in nearly every single category. The interesting thing is that they succeeded most more on their white wines, which is, as the kosher consumer has become a little bit more sophisticated, there's much more interest in white wines. And
why do people love like red wines over white wines? I'm a big white wine drinker. I love white wine in any.
Well, I think historically red wines are more prestigious. They last for longer. They're more expensive.
They sound like so fancy, but I'm like, white wines to me.
For a long time, Robert Parker was kind of the driving force in the wine world, not necessarily the kosher one, and he liked big, oaky, fruit-forward wines that were big and robust. And I think that when people spend money on something, they like it. It's like when you go to a restaurant. Changing a little bit, but the average kosher consumer, when he goes to a restaurant, he's paying $100 for a meal. He expects to have 19 pounds of steak on his plate and some French fries, because otherwise he doesn't feel like he's getting his money's worth. Right. But if he goes to a restaurant and has a dish that probably took the chef 40 hours to prepare, but it's the size of a button, but the flavors are all perfectly melded and explodes in his mouth, he feels like he's been gypped. So I think the wine follows that a little bit too. People had more expectations, but as people drink more, they realize that you don't necessarily want a big oaked red wine at 3:00 in the afternoon or for breakfast. You want a lighter wine, a sparkling wine, or refreshing wine. And so the wine I brought today is from Tabor Winery in their Adama series, and this is their Sauvignon Blanc from 2014. Due to the fact that 2015 is Shemitah in Israel, there's going to be very little 2015 wines available in the United States. So I would suggest stocking up on some of the 2014s. While generally you want to drink rosé and white wines within a year of harvest, 2 years you're going to be fine. And this is a wine that I cannot recommend enough as an everyday wine. Like I said, I think it retails probably even closer to $15. I mean, it depends where you buy and how you buy. I'm
snapping a picture of these two wine bottles with a wine still in it.
They happen to make a Merlot, which I know has, some image issues, but
so let's pour and drink.
They make a Merlot as well in this series that provides value for money well beyond equivalent to a $40 wine and not the $20 wine it is.
I love the fact that you've got this wine with a bottle.
With a screw top.
With a screw top. I used to think that was cheap junk wine. Jay Bookspam taught me otherwise, but I used to think, it doesn't have a cork. It's not fancy, but it's not true.
Well, the point of a cork is that it enables the wine to age in the bottle. It allows a little bit of oxidation to the wine that it needs over time, but it protects it sufficiently so it doesn't spoil. Most white wines, like I said, are going to be drunk within.
Right.
I mean, most wines are drunk within a few hours of purchase, but most white wines are meant to drink for the most part within a year or two of being purchased, and therefore having a screw top makes perfect sense. It actually is better for the wine. Funnily enough, speaking back about the Corvin, Greg's is working on a Corvin that will actually work with a screw top as well, because more and more high quality wines are being bottled under screw top these days, and that's a big thing of theirs. That and sparkling wine.
We have. I wrote down a question. You reminded me. White wine should be drunk at what temperature? And
white wine should be drunk at whatever temperature you enjoy it. Wine sometimes.
Because I'm into like cold white wine.
Sometimes me and my peers, other wine writers or bloggers, take wine to too much of an extreme and forget that it's ultimately just a beverage, and it's a great beverage, and it's a romantic beverage, and It's something that is alive and changes and is pleasurable and is a lot of fun, but it's just to drink. And you should really only drink wine that you enjoy.
Oh, of course.
And if somebody else says this is a great wine, you should try it. But if you don't like it, you shouldn't listen to that person anymore.
Right, no.
Because, it's a palate, and different people like different things. People get very stuck on what the right wine is and what the best wine is and things like that. But, this is it's got a lot of acid in it, which keeps the wine fresh and vibrant and crisp in your mouth. But it's also got a lot of fruit, a lot of citrus in it. It's got a little bit of that grassy flavor that people look for in a Sauvignon Blanc, but it's really a pleasurable wine. And it goes with pretty much everything. I've had the wine with scrambled eggs. I've had the wine on its own. I've even had the wine with duck and things like that. And you drink what you want when you want it.
This is awesome. This is very nice.
I usually don't drink most of the wine I taste. I spit, but I felt like that would be inappropriate on your show, so I'm actually going to drink it.
Ooh, I have a garbage bag. It's so good, right, CK? Are you doing a selfie there?
I really like the wine. So just to touch on the other wine, so the Tabor Winery is a winery. It's imported. It's widely available. They have a lot of different wines and a lot of different levels. Their whites in the Adama series are by far the best value you can get. Their Merlot has been for the last couple of years a phenomenal value. Literally a $40 value at $20. The second winery I wanted to just briefly mention was Recanati, which is owned by Italian banker Lenny Recanati, and also a larger winery. Tabor's larger makes more wine than Recanati. But Recanati really is one of the wineries in Israel that has spent a lot of time focusing on what a Mediterranean varietal is, and using wines and grapes that are more suited for the climate of the Mediterranean, as opposed to Cabernet Sauvignon, Merlot, and Chardonnay, which are the most noble of all varieties. But they come from France, which has a very different climate, or parts of France that have a very different climate than Israel. And while that's what the customer wants, and your average person is always looking for a Cabernet Sauvignon, the vast majority of Cabernet Sauvignons out there are not good. And they are the quality within a series of wines at a winery between the Cabernet Sauvignon and some of the more esoteric varietals like Petit Syrah, Carignan, even Merlot, are going to be of a far higher quality because it's much easier to sell Cabernet Sauvignon. So the better quality grapes will go into the next level up. But it's much harder to sell Carignan, Petit Syrah, on the white side, Viognier, Gewürztraminer, because people are less familiar with them. So that's where the real bargains are to be found. Recanati they do produce a Cabernet Sauvignon, they do produce those kind of varietals, but they have made a lot of focus on what they call Mediterranean varietals, which are varietals that come from the southern Rhone of France, which has a climate that's much more like Israel's. And the one I brought today was a Petit Syrah, which is one of my
we've got our
go-to
4 wine
wines.
glasses.
And again, this retails for probably under $25. Certainly during the Pesach sales, you can get a good price on it. And it's one of my go-to wines to serve to people who aren't so into wine, who come to my house asking for that atrocious excuse for a wine that comes in a colorful bottle. And, my goal is not to allow people to drink that.
We all know what you're talking about.
Well, I don't like to,
one
of the things you'll notice if you ever look at my newsletter.
You're never negative.
Is that I will never say something positive about a wine I didn't like, but due to the fact that I have no commercial bent here and it's really just for the love of the game, I felt that there was very little value in writing nasty things about wines.
I never speak bad about anything.
If I taste wine that I don't like, or a winery that I don't like, or have a negative experience, I just don't write about it, period.
Well, I write, people say I'm always I must love everything because everything I write about is always so positive, but there's so much stuff I've eaten that I don't write about. So what you see is only 50% of what I've eaten. There are some stuff I don't like.
I think I have it better than you because I think the ratio of good to bad on wine is probably unfortunately better than the good to ratio bad on food, which is frankly one of the reasons that the Rosh Chodesh Club has been such a success, because the food there has been such a thing. I mean, to be honest, I only cook once a month for these things. My wife does all the cooking at home.
Mrs. Horwitz.
In typical male fashion, I cook. I could take 4 days to cook, use 70 or 80 different utensils, pots and pans to cook these 4 or 5 dishes.
You know what? My husband has one. He's an amazing cook. He's much better than you. He only uses one piece of equipment.
Toaster?
The toaster oven.
There you go.
Well, and a knife, because you can smear the cream cheese on the toast.
You can do a lot in a toaster oven. Yeah. But my wife will cook a 4-course dinner for 25 guests in 2 hours and have the kitchen clean before I get home. So clearly, but it's fun, and you do it once in a while, and we've made some interesting things and had a lot of time. So this wine is a petite sirah, like I said, which does really well in Israel. It's a lot of fruit on the nose. It's a little bit sweet, which isn't actually sugar. It's not a sweet wine. It's a lot of fruit.
Smells divine.
It is a delicious wine, and there's some blueberry, some hints of blue fruit in there, which are some hints of blueberry, and then you get a little bit of chocolate. You get a little bit of the acid. The tannins are pretty well integrated. It's just a nice wine that you can drink every day at $25. You can have a glass or two, and over the 2 or 3 days, finish it up. And people ask me a lot, what do I do with the leftover wine? And I tell them that if you're drinking it the next day, you put a cork back in it, you stick it in the fridge overnight, and you're done. If you're going to keep it for more than a day or two, what I typically do is I'll pour it into a Poland Springs bottle or something like that, only because you can pour the wine into the bottle and then squeeze the bottle until the wine gets actually right to the top.
We've never heard that on Table for Two before. We've had a lot of wine talk. We've had a lot of talk about what to do with your leftovers. No one has ever bought that up.
Never, ever, ever use a vacuum thing.
Did you hear that? Did you all hear that?
So much about, right? Remember, there are only your mouth can only taste 5 tastes, right? There's sweet, sour. Let's pretend.
What's umami, the new one?
Well, umami's not so new, but it's a big part of Japanese and Korean
Newish.
cuisine. Unami's like a savory, really savory, meaty kind of. You get that from mushrooms.
Nutty.
You get that from aged meat. You might call it funky. That's also unami, but everything comes from your nose, and all these wonderful smells that you read about in tasting notes. Blueberry, blackberry, stuff like that all comes from your nose.
Yes, I could. That's why I really inhaled
So
this.
when you have a leftover bottle and use one of those kind of vacuum pumpers, it takes a lot of stuff. It takes a lot of the aromatics out of the wine, and it can deaden the wine. So it's really a waste. Put it in a plastic bottle. It won't interact badly with the wine.
I love that
Squeeze
you're
it to the
telling us
top.
that.
Shut the bottle, and I should start by saying you shouldn't have leftover wine. But in the unfortunate incident where you don't want to drink a whole bottle by yourself, or you don't have, your spouse, your children, whoever you are drinking with isn't around, and you do have leftover wine, put it in a just cork it and put it in the fridge overnight. You'll be fine. If you're not sure that you're going to drink it the next night, plastic bottle, squeeze it gently till the wine rises absolutely to the top, shut it, and you're good to go for 2 or 3 days.
I love that. I found this wine a little too dry for me.
Okay.
I definitely loved that white one.
Okay, you should work on it.
I should work on it.
Yeah.
I'm thinking like cheese, a nice sharp cheese would go well with that. I'm not sure what you would do with that.
This wine really goes with pretty much anything. I mean, I know people spend a lot of time focusing on food and wine pairing, and
I love.
And there's a lot of things to do, but I think that if you have a basic understanding about foods with respect to acid, fat, sugar, tannin, things like that, you're pretty good. I think we're running out of time.
Yeah.
Getting looks here. So.
No. We are wrapping up our hour. I think that you could do. We were joking before, the whole hour with you. You're amazing.
I am happy to talk about food and wine whenever.
And we didn't get to talk so much food, so you're going to have to come back, and we'll do a lot. We'll have the Yossie Horwitz hour. This was so much fun.
I am going to drink my wine while you finish
drink your wine. I just want to do a quick What's for Dinner segment, inspired by this white wine that we have had. I'm feeling like a fish. So I have this, and this is a Pesach recipe. Liebes makes a sweet chili. Drew a blank there for a second. A sweet chili sauce. I happen to love sweet chili sauce and salmon. So you take a side of salmon, 2 pound side, you put on a piece of parchment paper on a cookie sheet, and then you put the fish skin side down on that, and then you put some sweet chili sauce, and then sprinkle some Pesach panko crumbs. And then some black salt. If you can get some black salt for Pesach. If it's not Pesach, you can black sesame seeds. Or you can just leave it out altogether if you can't get any. And then bake it at 350 degrees for 20 minutes. 25 at the most. Please do not overcook your salmon. This was our What's for Dinner segment, sponsored by our friends at Gourmet Glatt. And our fish is always fresh from Aussies. And I would like to drink this with the tabor wine, because I already know that these flavors are going to go nicely together. That's almost my to-go salmon. When I need to make a fish quick and easy, I always have sweet chili sauce in the house. My kids like the sweet with a kick. They like mixing of the two flavors together, and I would drink that with this Tabor Adamar Sauvignon Blanc. I think would be a really great match together. Wow, an hour goes by just like that.
It does, especially when you're talking about wine or food.
Wine or food. That yerba that she made, Beth just had to leave, was really outstanding. I could not believe it. Wow. So I have to add that to my repertoire of cooking. This has been a really fun show, Table for Two with Naomi Nachman on the Nachum Segal Network. Our show is sponsored by Natural and Kosher Cheeses, when quality and flavor matter. stay listening. We've got music right up until Lech Benching, sponsored by our friends at Kedem. Stay tuned. We got a whole bunch of Pesach shows coming up. We got Susie and Jay coming up in the next couple of weeks, as well as Shifra Klein from Joy of Kosher. Have a happy, good Shabbos and happy cooking.